University and visiting professor at Wits Law School, Professor Mia Swart. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you on the show this morning, and I'm certain you heard my opening statement regarding this matter. Would you say this was a calculated move by the Saudis to protect the Crown Prince from prosecution by the United States?
Yes, it's a very transparent move. Typically, as far as I understand, King Salman would, also have the role of prime minister in Saudi Arabia, and this has now suddenly been reshuffled, and that role has now been assumed by Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS, the Crown Prince, and yes, but I do think it raises interesting questions about, whether this was even strictly necessary, in terms of just, how protected MBS is. It's now been 4 years since the murder, and there's been absolutely no accountability. So, it could indicate that they are nervous. But, in my view, he is still so protected that it might not even have been necessary.
You mean just as in his capacity as the Crown Prince, are you suggesting then the Saudis didn't even need to have gone to these lengths of appointing him as Prime Minister? Or is it a situation of doing absolutely everything to ensure his total protection, that he never ever does have to stand trial in this heinous murder of Jamal Khashoggi?
Yes, I suppose they are just making sure that he would be, immune from prosecution. But at the same time, I find it absolutely, you know, so difficult to believe that the US would ever, find him guilty and, take any steps against him.
Obviously, they have bilateral trade agreements, arrangements. They do lots of business and support each other. In fact, I think they the US supply the Saudis with all sorts of armament, weaponry, etc. So I guess if they would or should go ahead, which they can't under the immunity law now, that would kind of sour their trade relations, wouldn't it? And that's what they're protecting.
Yes, it's long-standing trade relations. It's long-standing diplomatic and political relations, and this is why in 4 years we've not seen any action. This is why Biden earlier this year visited Saudi Arabia. We saw the fist bump. There wasn't quite a handshake between the two rulers, but yes, it's in my view incredibly unlikely that there will be accountability from the U.S. side. But we hear from those who have initiated litigation, such as Jamal Khashoggi's fiance and Sarah Leah Whitson from the organization Dawn, that they will not rest until there's been accountability. That they will keep litigating. That they will keep keeping this issue alive. But, from a any sort of sense of reality, I cannot see the US holding Khashoggi accountable.
Okay, Professor, what do you make of that?
Sorry, but Saudi Arabia is a major source of energy, of oil. And, in this current energy crisis, it is vital for the US to have that as an alternative, source of energy.
So it's not only about the armaments, the trade of weaponry, etc., hardware to from the US to Saudi Arabia. It's also about the energy, the oil reserves, very especially
Yes,
now
I would say that's
with
number
Russia and
one.
Ukraine. Mm. Let me just go back a step. You referred to that a fist bump and not a handshake on Joe Biden's visit last July to Saudi Arabia. Why do you believe that was significant? I kind of put that down to the fact that we were still coming out of the COVID era, or is there something more significant that uh, to that fist
No,
bump?
of course it's incredibly significant. Of course, for him to meet a level of a leader of that seniority and to fist bump him, is absolutely a sign of, not wanting a full diplomatic engagement. Still holding back because he's very aware of the Khashoggi, matter and of, just the criticism he was facing before visiting Saudi Arabia. And these matters are always highly, you choreographed and planned. There's nothing coincidental about it.
So even though that fist bump you suggesting is very significant because the message it gives out to the rest of the world is that things are not, there are still some issues that need to be resolved, very especially the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. And in that very same meeting, Joe Biden brought up the issue of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Uh, he told MBS that he considered MBS responsible for the Khashoggi killing. MBS then replied by saying that he did not order the killing. However, he acknowledged that it took place under his watch. So that was the discussion shortly after the fist bump. What do we make of it? Or is it really just window dressing for the rest of the world?
Well, yes, of course, that was his line all along. That was what was said from early on when it was clear that they couldn't deny so much of the evidence that was forthcoming. This was how they tried to present it. But I mean, no one has ever believed that.
Sadly, Khashoggi was not going to relent at all. He was an ongoing critic of MBS, the policies of Saudi Arabia. I think he was very vociferous also about the war on Yemen and a whole host of other atrocities by Saudi Arabia. He wrote repeatedly in the Washington Post, um, and I guess Saudi Arabia wanted to muzzle that very loud voice that was making them very uncomfortable. He then traveled with his Turkish fiancee to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to obtain papers he needed to marry his Turkish fiancee. And that is when this whole issue, that is when he disappeared. She waited for hours on end. He never then emerged from the embassy. And obviously, two and two was put together. And there was footage showing that he entered the embassy, but he never ever left the embassy. So, the rest is obviously history. His fiancee, his Turkish fiancee, is not backing down. His first family in Saudi Arabia have closed the matter because they were given a blood money settlement. His fiancee, together with Dawn Organization, they want a further investigation. They want MBS and the perpetrators to be brought to book, and eventually, what they're looking for is closure. Do you believe they'll ever get that? I mean, MBS is so powerful. He rules Saudi Arabia. Do you believe that this is a totally lost cause as far as his fiance and the Dawn organization is concerned?
No, I would certainly not call it a lost cause. I think even the first bump in itself was significant. I think that Saudi Arabia is aware of the fact that this is not going away, hence Eva's move to appoint MBS as Prime Minister. But whether there would ever be, any enforcement of any judgment, I mean, they might even, get a judgment against them, but whether that would be enforced, whether MBS would, somehow ever go to The Hague or, go to prison, I think that's almost absurd in terms of the power of Saudi Arabia.
Okay, Professor, I have one or two more important questions to put to you, but can you please, can I ask you to be patient for a minute or two? We need to take an ad break.
Sure.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
The kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for the late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, now we cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
Devastating floods in Pakistan have washed away villages, claimed the lives of more than 1,000 people, damaged nearly 1 million homes, and left over 33 million people in desperate need of help. As the catastrophe unfolds, Islamic Relief is on the ground, reaching people with life-saving aid. Our team are working tirelessly to deliver food and shelter. Your support is urgently needed now to help save more lives. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib black seed. You can find Tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. It is exactly 9:23 a.m. This is News and Views right here on Salam Media. We're talking with Senior Lecturer at Edge Hill University and visiting Professor at Wits Law School, Professor Mia Swart. We're looking at the issue of Saudi Crown Prince, MBS as he's known all around the world, having immunity in the Khashoggi murder, and his fiance and the Dawn Institution wanting, obviously, looking for a prosecution, holding somebody responsible, and then eventually having closure on the matter. Back to you, Professor. And look, this MBS is a very powerful man. Everybody wants to be friends with him. All world leaders want to be friends with MBS and Saudi Arabia. Chances that the Dawn Foundation or Institute and his Turkish fiance ever getting um, justice on this matter is very, very slim. Do you think that if they go on beating this drum, that the Saudis might just put a fall guy, some little minion somewhere along the line to take the fall and hopefully, wish away the Dawn organization and his Turkish fiance? Do you think they might play that card, or they just hoping it will die a natural death, or possibly offer blood money to his Turkish fiance as well? That's if she would. I think she's very principled. Whether she accepts that offer is another matter altogether.
Well, I almost object to this question because, I think that it is, so clear that she would never take that money. I mean, everything about her behavior has been so, absolutely principled from the moment this has happened.
And that is why I said she's a very principled person. I made certain that I added that in when I put the question to you.
Yeah, so of course she will not, and I don't think she'll let this go. And I don't think that that Saudi Arabia will. I mean, they have already conducted their own sham trial where they have. In terms of your other question, they've already done this. It's well known that they have already pointed fingers at other people who were not that closely involved. So they have sort of had ways and means of their own try and show that they are taking some action, but it's completely meaningless.
So what, and my heart goes out to his fiance. What a terrible way for her dreams to be shattered. And also that she does want closure and she's not going to get it. What's the way forward for her and the Dawn Institute or Foundation? What is the way forward? They're going to carry on and carry on. Is that going to be her fight for the rest of her life?
I mean, maybe it will be, and maybe that is the only way of approaching this, to really just, keep his name alive, keep the matter alive, keep it in the media, keep, up awareness of the issue. And this is how, true human rights fighters go about things. Despite what might happen on a governmental level or what the courts might decide, you just persist in trying every means possible to keep the matter alive and to keep his name alive.
And I guess this does give a glimmer of hope to people in similar situations all around the world, people who have been robbed of their loved ones killed by corrupt governments. We can look at governments all around the world, very especially in third world countries. That doesn't mean that first world countries are all that squeaky clean. I mean, when I think about the situation of the human rights, the WikiLeaks leader, I mean, he's still in prison, and at this point in time, we don't even know what his fate will be. His fiance, I think they've subsequently married, they have 2 children. It was his lawyer that he had a relationship with, and they have subsequently married. And it gives people like them as well the hope that in a situation like this, the Khashoggi versus MBS case, it gives you that glimmer of hope that you need to keep the story alive in the minds of people all around the world, very, very especially people who seek justice and the rights for all.
That is correct. It's just, I do think that the Assange and Khashoggi matters are quite distinct in the sense that, in terms of Saudi Arabia, one is dealing with a regime that is so secretive that one doesn't even know, what's really going on and how many similar cases that there might be within the kingdom.
So all you have to say is really support these people in their ongoing struggle to be heard, to be understood. Maybe they won't get closure, but just to assist them in keeping their hopes, their loved ones' names alive, and perhaps also send out a message uh, to these very crooked, despotic leaders that you can't continue doing things like this, because we will continue keeping these stories alive in the press and in the minds of the rest of the world.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Professor Mia Swart, Senior Lecturer at Edge Hill University and Visiting Professor at Wits Law School. Thank you for being with us on the show this morning. Any final words you have to share, just to put out a bit of glimmer of hope to people out there, people who find themselves in helpless and hopeless situations?
Sure. I don't know, it's I feel like when one deals with Saudi Arabia, you're dealing with really, the sort of ultimate barrier to justice. But I do think that that this is a story that shows the power of the media, right? That the media is the one way of keeping these issues alive. And the media just continues, to probe and to criticize. That is one way of keeping someone's name alive, even if justice in the formal sense will never happen.
Please God, may we never, please God, may we never be gagged. Uh, I guess, and then, we're talking about two individuals in this specific interview, and that obviously is Jamal Khashoggi and Julian Assange. But when we look at the collective, when we look at the plight of the Rohingya, when we look at the plight of the Palestinians, when we look at the plight of perhaps the Uyghurs and other such minority groups all around the world, we need to keep those stories alive, and the media does, as you rightfully say, play a very, very important role here. We may not get closure. We may not be able to make dramatic changes in policies. We may not be able to save nations, minority nations, from being driven off their lands, or whatever their issues are, but we keep their stories alive, and long may we bless to be able to do so.
Yes.
Professor, thank you indeed. Nice talking with you. Go well and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
8:32 a.m. This is News and Views on Salam Media. My name is Julie Ali. Please keep us company on the show. We will be talking to 27 for investments, Fatima Vauda, and also Werner Opperman. I'm just looking at my notes, so bear with me, good people. We're going for an ad break, and inshallah, when we get back, we are going to talk to I think this is how it's pronounced, but if I pronounce it incorrectly, then Fatima or Werner will correct me. I think it's called the Agrarious Proposition. So do stay with us.